Morning legends, Coach Neil from Black Dog Coaching, and title of today's video is This Is Gonna Hurt, and you're gonna find out why very shortly. So those of you who have been tracking us for a while, you've probably heard us talk about our truth assessment, which is one of the first things that we get people to do when they join Black Dog Coaching, and it's essentially a question and answer task that's designed to break down every aspect of your life so that you can identify what it is that you need to work on. Now here's the thing, right? If you want to change something in your life, you want to get from a point A to a point B, there's two things that you need. You need to have absolute clarity on both of them. So the first thing you need to have clarity on is where you're starting from. And that's why we do the truth assessment. Now, here's the thing. Let's say you've sat down and you've made a complete list of all the things that you feel are wrong in your life. You've made a complete list of all the things that you feel you need to change in order to progress. And then we flip that on its head and we do what we call constructing you. So that's your point B. So if I could snap my fingers and you wake up tomorrow and everything is exactly the way you want it to be inside your life. You look the way you want to look. You feel the way you want to feel. You roll out of bed with limitless energy. Your relationships are exactly the way you want them to be, right? And that's your point B. That's what that looks like. Now let's say you've got a very clear point A. You are here right now. These are all the things in my life that I need to change in order to traverse across this point to point B, constructing you, the thing that you, or the person that you want to become, right? Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky. What if, while you're doing your truth assessment, you identify that one of the biggest issues in your life is that you're in a toxic relationship? Your partner, and I'm going to say partner because it can go either way, husband, wife, whatever it may be. What if your partner is the biggest source of your depression or depressive symptoms? What happens then? What happens if you identify that the biggest issue that you are facing in your life is that you're in a fucking toxic work environment? You hate it. You literally loathe waking up in the morning to go to work. But you've got a wife, a kid, and a mortgage to pay. And you've got no qualifications outside of that job. So what happens then? What happens when you identify that in order for you to move from this person here, this angry, depressed, maybe overweight, unhappy person, whatever this point A looks like, this is obviously the point that you don't want to be at. What if you identify that the only way to move to your point B and become the best version of yourself and the happiest version of yourself and the fittest and healthiest and all the good things, what if in order to get to this point here, you need to make massive lifestyle changes here? What if that involves cutting away somebody that you've been married to? What if that involves changing your job and looking for something outside of that? Maybe your point B involves doing something that you've always known intrinsically within yourself that you want to achieve before you die. Maybe you want to start your own company. Maybe you want to start a not-for-profit. Maybe there's something massive, huge that you want to do inside of your life, but you can't do that until you cut away the things at your point A that are holding you back. Now, there's no real answer for this. I can't give you an answer on what you can do at that point. But it's something to think about. And the reason I bring this up is from the male perspective anyway. Again, we do have the Black Dog Sisterhood, but I don't actually coach inside of that. We have our female coaches for that. But from a male perspective, there's a lot of guys who start our program and they get to week 2 or 3 and they get stuck because all of a sudden they realize that the things that they need to change in their life are very fucking big things indeed, such as maybe leaving a toxic relationship or fixing a toxic relationship, leaving a toxic job, starting something completely new from scratch. Anybody who's ever started their own business, their own not-for-profit, their own company, they know how big a task that is. So there's no answer in this. So what I do want is a bit of self-reflection from you guys. If you're watching this and you know that in yourself there's parts of your life that you want to change, I want you to ask yourself right now, chuck it in the comments down below, what would you be willing to do to move to your point B? What would you be willing to cut away from your life to become happy, to experience true happiness, to be aligned to an intrinsic purpose, to be in a relationship that you love, to have a job that you love, to have a physique that you are happy to look in the mirror and go, yep, I am happy with that? What would you be willing to give up right now, today? What would you be willing to cut from your life right here, right now, today to move forward? Because if you are not willing to make those big changes, if you are not willing to do what I call it pulling the trigger, if you're not willing to pull the trigger on the big decisions, then coaching is pointless from anybody, from us, from anybody else. If you're not willing to do the hard yards, if you're not willing to make the big decisions, if you're not willing to accept that the things need to be changed and the only way to change them is to leave them behind in order to become the best version of yourself, then coaching is probably not for you, because the very first part of it is acknowledging what you need to change and being prepared to pull the trigger on those changes. Just something to have a think about, guys. I'm Coach Neil. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll see you on the next video.